Hi, hello everybody, I'm Justin, this is Koopa, and welcome to Koopa's Corner. Today we're going to talk about WWE's premium live event, Evolution. This is our post-show breakdown. Evolution was just this past Sunday. Evolution is the all-women's premium live event. This was a stacked premium live event. Typically they have 5 matches. This one had 7. This is the second time in WWE history that they had an Evolution, with the first one being 2018. So it's been 7 years since the last Evolution. So let's talk about the matches. Let's talk about what it could mean for some of these superstars going forward. First up, it was a triple threat match. It was the man, Becky Lynch, defending her Intercontinental Championship against Bayley and Lyra Valkyria. Now this match was actually a very solid match. There was some fun creative spots. They did play on some tropes, that triple threat matches have pretty often. Maybe people were kind of leaning into it. Sometimes, certain matches have certain, they have certain tropes, certain things that happen every time, and they really leaned into it with this triple threat match. That being said, it was a lot of fun. It's a good match. The gist of the story kind of was going that, ultimately Lyra and Bayley kept costing each other the match. They both could have had it won at different points, and they both kept costing each other. And in the end, that sort of rivalry trumped either one of their ability to win, and Becky Lynch stole a victory with a quick little roll-up pin. Kind of a roll-up, not exactly, but I don't have a better word for it, so I'm going to call it a roll-up. And it was kind of a fun match. So it was a pretty decent match. Becky Lynch retained her Intercontinental Championship. Going forward, I think this should mean probably Bayley and Lyra kind of feud off on their own, while a new challenger steps up for Becky Lynch, hopefully for SummerSlam. I mean, Becky is such a big star, and I think this could be a huge moment for somebody at SummerSlam to go up against her. And that's coming up pretty soon. We also had quite a few matches, like I said. I'm trying to remember the match order. I think next up was the NXT Women's Championship match. That would have been Jacy Jayne defending her championship against Jordynne Grace. Right? Jacy Jayne had a couple of people in her corner, Fallon Henley and Jasmine Nix, I think they said. And then Jordynne Grace had Blake Monroe. The match was actually really good. I'm not really familiar with either of these two superstars. I mean, Jordynne Grace has been in the Royal Rumble once or twice. That's really all I know. I don't watch NXT. I don't really know who any of these people are. That being said, sort of the story that took place here, the storyline going on, felt very predictable. Like it was very in the forefront. You could see it coming. There was a little backstage segment where Jordynne Grace asked Blake Monroe to come to her corner. Jacy Jayne, Fallon Henley, and the other one, they kind of had this gimmick where they're sort of the hot chicks, and Jordynne Grace was more of like weightlifting and that kind of stuff. And Blake Monroe sort of fit the other vibe a lot better. And in the end, she turned on Jordynne Grace. She didn't really align with the other three, which is kind of what I thought was going to happen. I thought she was going to be like the 4th member of their group. She just sort of turned on Jordynne Grace and then kind of left. So maybe I guess it wasn't quite as predictable as I said, but her betrayal of Jordynne Grace, you could sort of see that coming a mile away. But the match was really good. And yeah, I mean, it's nice to learn some more about these competitors that are in NXT when I don't watch NXT regularly, so I was pretty impressed by both of them. I was pretty impressed with this match. I kind of had low expectations or no expectations. I didn't really know what to expect. But it was a solid match, very solid match. Then there was the Women's Tag Team Championship match, the Fatal 4-Way match. This match was a lot of fun. Alexa Bliss and Charlotte Flair versus the Kabuki Warriors versus Sol Ruca and Zaria from NXT versus the Judgment Day, Raquel Rodriguez and Roxanne Perez, who is replacing Liv Morgan. Roxanne and Raquel got the W, retained their tag team championships, which I think from a storytelling perspective was probably a really smart move. I think that Roxanne should have probably been racking up some W's earlier than this. Probably the moment Liv went out, this is the story they should have been telling. But Roxanne sweeping in, giving the Judgment Day some big W's, replacing Liv Morgan, full on becoming a member of the Judgment Day, full on winning everyone's respect, everyone's acceptance, winning over Raquel, winning over Dom. This all needs to happen before Liv returns. She straight up needs to replace Liv Morgan 100%. And then Liv Morgan returns, and that's when the drama starts. So that's exciting that they got the victory there. Now, Alexa Bliss was the most popular star of the match by far. Since her return, she hasn't done a ton. I would love to see her move more into like a title contention. It's been a long time since she held a world title. But this storyline that she's got going on with Charlotte Flair of are they friends, are they not friends? We don't like each other, but we make a good team. But they're slowly winning over each other. It's a fun storyline. They'll probably eventually get a little run with the tag titles, and one of them will turn on the other one, and that match will be a pretty big match for both of them. So that's a lot of fun. I don't know too much about Sol Ruca or Zaria. Zaria kind of had some like Luna Vachon vibes going on, and Sol Ruca, incredibly athletic, did some crazy stuff. They didn't have a ton of chemistry as a team. Not even Charlotte and Alexa, who are sort of this strange bedfellows team, had a lot more chemistry than them. But it was nice to see NXT included here. And then the Kabuki Warriors, they're just there. But yeah, that was the Fatal 4-Way Tag match. Ended up being a very solid match. And again, I just think from a storytelling perspective, they sort of hit the nail on the head, and they're going to be able to move forward here with a couple of different storylines. So that's pretty much all you can ask for. There were, I'm trying to remember the order of the matches here. Tiffany Stratton, I think, was next with Trish Stratus. Probably one of the weaker matches of the night, but it was still a very solid match. Trish looked great for her age. Tiffany Stratton is phenomenal. I think she's underrated because she hasn't really had a ton of competition, right? She's not tearing it up with the big names on Raw like Io Sky and Rhea Ripley. She's, tearing it up with Nia Jax over and over and over again. So this was a really big win for her over a legend like Trish Stratus. Trish was a fresh opponent. Both of them sort of babyface kind of hurt a little bit. There was less of a clear dynamic in the match. But yeah, Trish looked great for her age. She was able to go pretty well. Tiffany Stratton got a big W here. Solid, pretty solid. Nothing too special, but pretty much all you can ask for. It was great. All right, there was the no holds barred match. Jade Cargill and Naomi, with Bianca Belair as the special guest referee, as announced on Saturday night's main event. That wasn't advertised much in advance, but the night before, Bianca came out while Jade and Naomi were brawling a little bit on Saturday night's main event, and Nick Aldis announced that she would be returning and she'd be the special guest referee. The match was a no holds barred match. They had a lot of fun playing up to the gimmick. Michael Cole mentioned during the match it was only the 4th no-holds-barred match, women's match in WWE history. They leaned into it. They played up to the gimmicks really well. The same problem, I've mentioned it a few times in a few of my videos. The advertisements are getting ridiculous. They pulled out a table and it was a Slim Jim table. It wasn't just a table. And just the product placement and the advertisements and the corporatization is hit a level where it's distracting from the action, which is why I keep calling it out, because it's so in your face that it's distracting and it's a problem. But aside from that, very solid match. Jade got a huge victory here. Between her big victory over Naomi here and her winning the Queen of the Ring tournament, she's got a championship opportunity coming up at SummerSlam. This was the right moment to sort of finish the feud so she can move on, focus on challenging Tiffany Stratton. I think that's going to be huge, right? 2 upcoming stars, 2 people with rockets to their back, just upward trajectories, and one of them's got to take a loss, and it's going to be a huge match of the next generation, right? So that's going to be huge, and this was a great way to finish this feud to allow Jade to move on for it. Jade absolutely needed the victory here, sort of the exclamation point at the end of the feud. And this feud has been going on for far too long, so I'm glad that it's over. I'm glad Bianca Belair is back, right? She's going to inject some much-needed life into the women's division on SmackDown. There was the Battle Royal. The winner gets a championship match at Clash in Paris. This match was a little bit chaotic, especially in the beginning. And not necessarily in a good way, but that's kind of how battle royals are. The same way I talked about triple threats, there are certain tropes with a battle royal that they definitely played up here. Kalani Jordynne from NXT had this huge Kofi Kingston moment where she saved herself from elimination. Nia Jax had a roll to the outside and hide for half the match, kind of a trope. Really, the only thing that they didn't hit was the 6, 7, 8 competitors team up on Nia because she's the biggest one, and then she pushes them all back at once. They did not do that spot, but that was really the only sort of main battle royal spot that they didn't do. Bunch of names from NXT, bunch of names from Raw, SmackDown. A lot of women you wouldn't really expect to win and get a big opportunity. And they all sort of got thrown out one after the other until the Final Four. The Final Four was Nikki Bella, Stephanie Vaquer, Lash Legend, and Nia Jax. Now, once you get to the Final Four, it realistically could make sense for any one of them to win. Maybe a little less so Lash Legend, but they didn't specify that it would be a championship opportunity against either Tiffany Stratton or Io Sky, assuming they both still going to be champion by then. So she could have realistically had a match against Jacy Jayne for the NXT Women's Championship at Clash in Paris, which is why someone like her winning would have also made sense, right? Because we're not assuming it's a call-up. We're just assuming she's going to face for the NXT title. And Nikki Bella was the first one out at this point of the 4 remaining. Bit of a shocker. She was my prediction to win. After missing out on that huge match with Liv Morgan at Evolution, she sort of got thrown into this. I thought she would win this to set up another huge, one-on-one match in Paris and, sort of give her that spotlight that she should have had tonight. Nia Jax got thrown out with a little bit of a double team against her from Stephanie Vaquer and Lash Legend teaming up. Stephanie Vaquer and Lash Legend, the final 2. And Stephanie Vaquer got her out with a devil's kiss on the apron. Stephanie Vaquer is the winner. Now, I predicted Nikki Bella. I was rooting for Stephanie. I'm a huge Stephanie Vaquer fan. I think she's got tremendous upside. She's got so much momentum, so much star power. I think that she is the future of the women's division, and putting her in a championship opportunity already says a lot about what the WWE thinks of her as well. So there's no denying just how fast her star is rising and how big of a star she's going to be if they do this the right way. So very excited for that. Very excited for Stephanie Vaquer. And other than that, it was, it was an okay battle royal. The ending was a little bit better than the beginning, which was a little bit chaotic. Such is the way for battle royals. Right? Alright. And then we had one last match, and that was Rhea Ripley and Io Sky for the Women's World Championship. And this match had a lot of time. It started off slow. They built throughout. They built momentum. They built aggression. This match really progressed in a way that made a lot of sense. Referee Jessica Carr took a big bump. They brawled on the outside. Io Sky jumped off of some shit. They made their way back to the ring. A couple of near falls. This match was just hitting on all cylinders, right? It was the best match of the night by far. It was hitting on all cylinders. And then Naomi came out, cashed in her Money in the Bank briefcase, turned it into a triple threat match, won almost immediately. New champion, Naomi. A lot of people were excited. The crowd was going nuts. Me personally, I'm not a big fan of Naomi. I thought that was a bit of a bummer. I didn't want to see her cash in yet. I didn't want to see her cash in successfully. I think there's way more upside to having Io or Rhea as your champion. But that is just my own personal dislike of Naomi coming through here. So, I don't know. The WWE has clearly forgiven her for her walking out with Sasha Banks. She's got some big opportunities since returning, and it has culminated in a world title win for her. So going forward, I guess the question is Jade Cargill going to face Tiffany Stratton, like we all assumed, like I was talking about earlier, or is she going to continue the feud with Naomi, which would be a bit of a drag. The only upside to that would be potentially Jade winning, Naomi having a very short reign, and then have Tiffany Stratton on SmackDown, Jade Cargill on Raw as your champion. So we can almost, or at least me personally, again, not a Naomi fan, I really hope for that. I think Jade Cargill winning a championship already would be huge. And she can clearly beat Naomi, and it would really be an exclamation point on the end of this feud. Whereas, her going to SmackDown and facing Tiffany Stratton, that's a tough one to decide who I want to win that one. I think there's tremendous upside to both of those women. So, yeah, it's a bit of a tough one. I think likely, Io and Rhea, one or the other or both, will pursue Naomi. They'll have a rematch for the championship at SummerSlam. I think Jade will ultimately face off against Tiffany Stratton, but this opens that door, right? If they do go in that direction and it's not Rhea and it's not Io, where do they go for SummerSlam? What stories are left for them? It's really tough to see their direction going forward. I'm sure maybe as early as Monday Night Raw, and by the time this video posts, it should be afterwards, so we might even know which direction it's going to go. Like I said, maybe as early as that. So, remains to be seen. Now, all in all, this was like a very solid event, right? Most of the matches were good. Io and Rhea was great. There were a mix of legends, upcoming superstars, future superstars from NXT. There were people in the crowd. We saw Maurice, we saw Jazz, we saw Jacqueline, we saw Molly Holly. Ivory was there. The world's strongest man, Mark Henry, was there. So just, pretty solid night of wrestling. Co-hosted Joe Tessitore and Stephanie McMahon was out a few times. Listening to Stephanie hype up the various matches and the various storylines throughout the night was kind of cool because as someone who's not around as consistently, she really understood some of the nuances of the stories being told, which says that either she's backstage a lot more than we realize, or like she did her homework, and like even though she's not like there all the time and her family doesn't own this company anymore, like this is still something that she is so incredibly passionate about, and particularly on a night like Evolution where it's all about the women, having somebody like Stephanie McMahon present throughout the night felt very fitting. right? I think this was definitely a much better event than Saturday night's main event the night before. And if you missed this, you should definitely check it out. There's very few matches in here that I would skip. But if you only had to watch one, watch that main event match, Rhea Ripley and Io Sky. Now, guys, let me know in the comments what you thought of Evolution. What was match of the night? And thank you so much for watching. We'll see you in the next one.